This is your 2.3.4 practice programming tutorial video. You guys should be looking at your worksheet that says 2.3.4 practice programming. The procedure for this activity says write a code in Robot C to perform each of the following tasks with your testbed. Your code must include proper pseudocode and comments in order to be complete. I'm going to talk to you about what pseudocode and comments are as we go. The procedure also says you can make notes about the code on this sheet for you to reference later as you build your projects and take your test. You guys are going to have a test over coding, and you're also going to need to write your own codes for your projects. These practice codes that we're going to go through, we're going to write 2 practice motor exercises, a bump switch exercise, a limit switch, an LED, an if else, and a while loop exercise. These 7 practice codes we're going to write are just practice. You guys are going to have to write your own code when you start building your robots next week. So make some notes while you write these codes if you think that'll help you. As we write these codes, you're also going to plug everything into your test bed and make sure they work. Okay, let's get started. On your computer screen, you should find your Robot C for Vex Robotics. When you find this program, open it up, and you can close any of these pop-ups. If you click on the pop-ups, they'll go away. The first thing we're going to do every time is open the PLTW template. So we're going to go to File, Open Sample Program. We're going to scroll down to the folder that says PLTW. PLTW stands for Natural Language. So when we, I'm sorry, PLTW doesn't stand for Natural Language. PLTW stands for Project Lead the Way. So we're going to open the Project Lead the Way folder and open the PLTW template. This PLTW template has some things already typed for us that are going to help us out. So for project title, let's type 2.3.4 practice programming number 1, because this is going to be our first one. Your team members right now, these are just for you to do individually. So you're your only team member. So type your name in here. Don't type your name like I am. Type what your name is. If your name is Alex, type Alex. If your name is Skylar, type Skylar. Type the date. Today's date right now is 9/29. Whatever day you're watching this, type in the date that you're watching it. And your section is just your bell. If you're bell 1, type bell 1. If you're bell 2, type bell 2. If you're bell 3, type bell 3, and so forth. The task description comes from your worksheet. So look back at your worksheet, and the task description says turn the right motor on forward at half speed for 5 seconds, then stop the motor. So that's what we're going to type for task description. Turn the right motor on half speed for 5 seconds, then stop the motor. That's the task description. The task description is just a general description of what we're trying to do. The pseudocode breaks that task description into steps. So we're going to turn on the right motor. That would be the first step. The second step will be to wait 5 seconds. And the last step will be to stop the motor. So this is basically going to be a 3-line code. And we know that because the pseudocode split our task description into 3 sections. Now notice this symbol here at the bottom, this asterisk /. Up here at the top we had a / asterisk. These 2 symbols, when we put them together, these make a multi-line comment. So all of this up here at the top in green is basically just a big comment. So this is all just for humans to read. The robot isn't going to read this at all. This is for humans, but it is important. It is part of your code, and it is part of your grade. Now, when you get down here into task main, you see this blue and red. This is where the code actually begins, where the robot's going to start looking at what you're doing, and you don't need this comment over here. You can delete that comment. Before you start writing code, there's a couple things you always need to check. You need to go to Robot, and you need to check the communication mode. The communication mode needs to be USB only, so click on USB only. This one that says VexNet, if you wait for the robot to look for VexNet, it's going to search for a wireless network that we don't have. If it's looking for a wireless network we don't have, it's not going to download your code as quickly. So click USB only and it'll download your code right away. You also need to check your platform. So go to Robot, Platform Type, and make sure that it's the 2.0 Cortex and it's the Natural Language PLTW. So click on Natural Language PLTW and notice we saw some changes over here. So we will see some changes with our library. So our platform type says 2.0 Cortex and Natural Language PLTW. And our communication mode says USB only. Okay, all of the commands we are going to use for our code are in this natural language tab. So you can hit the plus sign and open up your natural language tabs. If yours are collapsed, it might look like this. Your natural language might look like setup, movement, robot motion, wait, until, and special. If you want to open these up, you can open them up or you can leave them collapsed. To open them up, you just click on the plus sign. To collapse them, you click on the minus sign. So for our code, we're going to start pulling in code that matches our pseudocode. So to turn on the motor, we're going to click on movement, and where it says start motor, this line of code is going to start the motor. So we're going to click on it and drag it into our code. So that's our first line of code. Our first line of code is to start the motor. Well, which motor? We never did that. We never set up our motors in our robot, so we need to go back and do that. We need to click on motor and sensor setup. Remember we talked about that when we were taking our notes? We have to tell the robot where everything is plugged in. So we click on motor and sensor setup, and at the top we're going to click on motors, and we're going to tell the robot where our motors are plugged in. So let's plug our right motor into port 1, and remember we capitalize the M. And it is a VEX 393 motor, and we're not going to reverse it right now. Let's plug our left motor in port 10. Why do you guys think I'm choosing ports 1 and 10? That's right, I'm choosing ports 1 and 10 because I can plug them in without the 29 motor controller. So plug your right motor into motor port 1 and plug your left motor into motor port 10. When you do this, make sure the black wire is to the outside of the motor port. So the black wire should be to the outside of the motor port, and you will be good to go. Click Apply, and then close this window. At the top, you'll notice that you have pragma statements. See how these lines 1 and 2 of your code start with hashtag pragma, hashtag pragma? This is automatically generated. When you do motors and sensor setup and you tell the robot you have a right motor VEX 393, left motor VEX 393, and you clicked apply, that told the robot that port 1 was a right motor, T motor VEX 393, port 10 was a left motor, T motor VEX 393. Robot C does that automatically for you, so you don't have to type it in. It happens automatically when you do motors and sensors setup. What we can do now, and we got some errors because we didn't tell the code which motor we're trying to start. So where it says motor port, we're going to type right motor, because that's what we called our right motor. We're trying to start the right motor. So when we're trying to turn on the right motor, we do start motor, right motor, and we're trying to do half speed, right? If you look at your worksheet, half speed is 63. Okay, on your worksheet it tells you that half speed is 63. So in our code, we're going to type in where it says speed, we're going to delete that, and we're going to type 63. So that's our first line of code. If you want to get rid of this red X, now that you've fixed your line of code, click on compile. Compile basically means check my code. So when you click on compile, it checks the code, there's no more errors. Down here is where it was telling you the errors. Now our next line of code needs to be wait 5 seconds. So we're going to go back to natural language. We're going to go to wait. We're going to pull in a wait time. A wait time is going to be 5 seconds. So where it says wait time, we're going to delete that and type a 5. Compile the program. Yep, no errors. Go back to natural language. Our last line is going to be to stop the motor. So we're going to go back to movement. We're going to pull in stop motor. Which motor are we trying to stop? We're trying to stop the right motor. So our code says start motor, right motor at 63 speed, wait 5 seconds, stop motor. These are our lines of code. For our code to be complete, we have to type comments. So after our code, for a single line comment, type 2 forward slashes. Notice how my forward slashes turn green automatically? Yours should too. So for our comment, we're just going to explain what this line of code does. What does this line of code do? This line of code starts the right motor at half speed. That's your comment. Nothing fancy, it just tells you what that line of code does. This line of code, put your 2 forward slashes, waits 5 seconds. This line of code, 2 forward slashes, turns off the right motor. At this point, comments seem really silly because we're writing really simple codes. When you guys start writing more complicated codes for your robots, comments are very helpful. If you take Project Lead the Way at the high school level and you're writing code for the high school robots, these comments are how you troubleshoot your code. So you need to do these comments, even though they feel silly right now because we're writing such really short, simple codes. Comments are a very important habit to get into, and they are very helpful. So up here we have a magic wand that fixes formatting. And what this is going to do, watch what happens when we click on Fix Formatting. It lines everything up. So all of our tabs should be lined up. So use your tab button, line up your comments, and when we click on Fix Formatting, it makes sure everything's straight. Your braces at the top and bottom should be lined up. All your code is lined up. All your comments are lined up. You've got pseudocode. You've got a task description. You've got all your introduction, your project title, your team members, your date. Your pragma statements are good to go. Now your code is done. This is a beautiful first code. You guys have everything you need. We need to save it now, and we're going to download it to the robot. So go to File, Save As. Don't save it in the sample programs folder. If you save it in the sample programs folder, it's going to get deleted. You need to save it in your user drive. So click this drop down arrow, save it in your user drive. It says U right there, and call it 2.3.4 practice programming number 1. When you save this code, now you're ready to download it to your robot. So you need to go over to the battery cart, you need to get a battery, and you need to get an orange cable. Pause the video while you do that. Okay, now that you have your battery and your orange cable, plug your battery into your Cortex and turn it on. Plug your orange cable into your Cortex and plug your orange cable into the tower for your computer. Once everything's plugged in and turned on, click Download to Robot. And I got an error because mine's not plugged in, but yours will download to your robot, and you can click Start. When you click Start, you should see your wheels go, and after 5 seconds, it should turn off. And that's how you know you've done your work, this code correctly. If you download this to your robot and your right motor spins on forward for 5 seconds and then stops, you know you did this correctly. So go ahead and check it off. Print this code out. Okay, so go to File. Why did my... To print your code, go to File, Print. When you go to print, make sure you choose the printer. Don't print it to this one, this T520. Do not print to that DesignJet T520. Click on this drop-down arrow. Sorry, my computer's being really slow. When this drop-down arrow ever works, you're going to pick the printer that says 4250. Pick the printer with the numbers that say 4250. Don't print to that 520. Print to the one that says 4250, and you guys will be good to go. All right, so now that you have your work saved and printed and it worked on your test bed, you are finished with number 1. Good job, guys.